The town of Dawson City today looks and feels much like it did during the Gold Rush, with many of the Gold Rush era structures still standing. The most impressive of these, both now and back then, is the Palace Grand Theater.
The Palace Grand Theater was probably the finest constructed theater in Dawson City. It was commissioned by a showman by the name of Arizona Charlie Meadows, who was used to entertaining crowds by demonstrating his marksmanship on stage.
Meadows was a veteran of the Wild West shows and worked with Buffalo Bill in the United States. To build the Palace Grand, Meadows used lumber from 2 steamboats he had bought. By the spring of 1899, the theater opened and featured a stage play called Camille.
The entertainment that was offered, it was intended to add a veneer of sophistication to a very rough and tumble kind of community. Everything from Shakespearean performances to fancy theater. An attempt to create some sophistication where it otherwise didn't exist.
But it didn't last long. For all intents and purposes, the Gold Rush ended in 1899, just 3 years after it began. For years, the Palace Grand stood as a rundown reminder of those glorious Gold Rush days. And 60 years later, after years of neglect, Dawson City had the classic look of a ghost town. But in 1961, the Canadian government began an effort to restore some of the historic buildings, including the Palace Grand. In June of 1962, the restored Palace Grand opened with a production of a new Broadway play called Foxy. With the renovated Palace Grand came the determination to put the spirit of the Klondike Gold Rush back into the Klondike. Today, the Palace Grand is a vibrant venue, hosting musical performances, film screenings, and theater.
Well, I was already in Alaska when I heard about the big strike on Bonanza Creek there. The first thing I did when we arrived in Dawson City was get the boys that came down that boat with me. I said, you got to get yourselves to the gold fields as soon as possible and stake up what's left. We're early, but there's still a few people ahead of us.